Well, hey, Dr. Altvater, thank you so much for being on the fifth annual Innovative Child Therapy Symposium. I think you've been on every one, and certainly, like, anytime I get a chance to work with you, I do. I'm a big fan, and I love your book, Perspective. I love all of the things that you stand for, that you teach, and I'm really excited about today's topic because it's something that many of us has either struggled with or currently struggling with, and you have shifted into a different phase of life. But before we get started, let me have you just tell people who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I am Dr. Rachel Altvater. Let me actually back up. Thank you for having me here. I'm stoked to be here. I love our connection. I love when everyone joins us, and hopefully this sprinkles some normalization and some compassion, which I know we all collectively don't get enough of. So I'll start there. I'm a licensed psychologist in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. I'm a registered play therapist supervisor, and I always just say I sprinkle myself a little everywhere. I love to provide leadership support, mentoring, supervision, training, and direct client services. I am stoked to see where this conversation goes today.
Me too, me too. I think about all the things that you've done, and I first met you at the beginning of COVID. You have a lot of specialties. One of the, I guess, my favorite qualities that you have is authenticity. You're very real. Like you don't present to
Sugarcoat.
That's beautiful. And that's in your book too. I love your book. I'm going to put links down below for those of you watching anything that Dr. Alvader, Rachel has to offer, whether it be your book or courses or anything like that. I know you have a lot of material out there. I've watched several YouTube videos and things of that nature. So, all right. So, parenting, parenting,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
us.
And thinking of being a professional, right? And I specifically being a child therapist, I think there's a shared expectation of, well, I should, let's should all over the place now. But like I should have it all together. Like I know the things, right? Like I have this education, I know child development, I provide support to children who are struggling. And then so many parents have challenges themselves because we're human beings. I think, though, not enough people really speak truth to experience and, oftentimes try to fit some arbitrary, made up mold. And yeah, like I said, I just hope that today is more normalizing for people who think everyone, including myself, just have it all together. Because I always like to say we are all just humans scrambling behind the curtain, trying to figure it all out. Right. And that's an ongoing evolution that all of us encounter through our lives.
Hiding the curtain. That's one of the metaphors you use in your book. That's so good. I know, as a school counselor years ago, I had my own kids at that school. And I remember exactly what you're just describing. I remember after school one day, my daughter, she's older now, but she had a meltdown. And I wasn't the bright, shining, stellar example of a parent during that time. And the principal looked through the window and I was like, oh no, she's seeing my kid is having a meltdown and I'm stressed out. And now I look back at it, I'm like, okay, so just because I help other people with their parenting and everything, it didn't make those experiences not be part of my human reality. So,
Right.
but I think
Right.
so many of us don't, especially if it's like in the midst of it, if we don't realize that that's the case, there's this like almost like a imposter, like, oh, my kid's never going to cry. I'm never going to get stressed out and maybe all of
Perfect
that. Yeah,
action.
it's a thing. So you have three tips for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to actually highlight what you just mentioned a little bit more too. Our nervous system, which I'm pretty sure we always come back to the nervous system when we talk together. I
Yeah.
think there's always some connection to the nervous system. When our nervous systems are dysregulated, or I guess I should say when our child's nervous systems are dysregulated, our nervous system syncs up for a variety of evolutionary purposes.
Mhm.
right? So then when our nervous system starts to escalate, that also signals to the child something is going awry here, right? Like I already felt unsettled for some reason, and now my caregiver is dysregulated for some reason, right? And this is all on a nervous system level.
Yeah.
So then that sometimes upsets children more, right? It's just this energy shift back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it escalates. So I just think about your nervous system in that moment, right? Logically, you know all the things to do. Let me pause. Let me calm myself down. Let's do some deep breathing right here. Like, how many times is that really going to happen? Right? That's not knocking all of the skills, and diaphragmatic breathing absolutely is beneficial. And when we are in it, in the moment, we can't help but just respond the way our nervous system is responding.
Like survival states. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Somebody told me once that anger management is really good unless you're angry. And then you, which I was thinking, oh, that kind of makes sense. It's like they are inherently really great skills, but when we have gone past the point of no return, we don't have access to that prefrontal cortex because of all the cues of danger. I love that you linked it to evolutionary too, like when our child is having a time, us going into these flight or fight or matching them. It seems
Mhm.
logical. I never even thought about it that way. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's oftentimes we do the things that we do because we just do it that way. And then when we're actually able to link it to a concept, it all of a sudden, like, I don't know the right words to use, but like it makes it okay, right? Like the situation hasn't changed, but now that we have understanding, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. And I think that if we operate as like recognizing that there are things that we know intuitively, we might not know the term, or this is exactly how it's spelled out and why we do the things we do. The things that we do serve a purpose for one way, shape, or form, or in one way, shape, or form. So
Gives us
yes.
self-compassion, which is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And even as a therapist, right, in our work as therapists, I can own when I first started providing therapy services, I felt like I have no idea what I'm doing. And, I hope I'm operating in the way that I'm supposed to. I mean, I've learned and I'm licensed and somebody let me do this, right? Imposter
That's
syndrome.
a really good attitude.
Somebody, good luck. That's so then once I actually started to connect what I was doing to certain terms or, certain frameworks, I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like now I feel okay in what I'm doing because I feel like it's justified because it's written somewhere, or this is what somebody had said, versus really trusting yourself. Right. And that goes back to the authenticity. If you live in your truth
Ooh.
and you operate accordingly, then like what really makes what you're doing wrong? As
Ooh.
long as you lead with compassion and support, right? Intentionality, kindness,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. When you said that, like live in your truth, then what makes what you're doing inherently wrong, as long as you're covering all the bases there, there's like a peace that goes with that. It's like I'm doing the best I can that I can at this moment.
Yeah.
There,
A big thing that comes out with that is trust in yourself. And this is something that comes up in a lot of my sessions. And I think this is going to be a really great connector to the 3 points that I totally veered us away from, all relevant, of course.
yeah.
Um, but now I'm stuck on the 3 points. But
Wow, though that
yeah,
living
just
truth,
yeah.
that gave me that whole phrase of living your truth. I feel like I need to write that down somewhere. That's it. That's it in a very powerful, profound phrase that even could even go like on like a post-it note in your bathroom mirror, like know who you are and be that person.
Yes, and actually, thank you. That re-sparked what I was going to say is the trust in oneself, right? Like for us to really trust ourselves, and I think that piece tends to be missing a lot because of messages that we receive externally, the things that we absorbed internally. We start to question ourselves, and we don't trust our decisions and don't trust that truth. And so I think that piece is something that's really important. That comes up in a lot of my sessions and even comes up with myself. I trust myself. I trust my connection with my child. I trust my connection with my work. I trust my purpose that I have created and continue to follow for my life. And I
Mhm.
think that the rest falls into place. I know it sounds idealistic. I'm not saying that it's easy by any means. I think that it's a core foundation, though, that's important for all of us to connect to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a tall order, but once you're there, I don't even know if I'm there, but I know you know, over time, and I think about like you've taught me, and I mean even just like with phrases like that, you've taught me that like it's okay to be who you are, even if it's different than what other people think you should be.
Mhm. And it's going to be, which I know we keep plugging the book, but I talk about that in my book too, that how we view other people, it's really a sliver of reality, right? A different version of us exists in the minds of everybody that we come across.
Yeah,
So no matter what we do, how we try to paint a certain picture, how we explain ourselves, the intention behind it, different people are going to perceive it in different ways. At the end of the day, everyone's perspective is fully owned and operated by them. So as long as we feel good in what we do, that's really truly all that matters at the end of the day. And I think all of you that are listening, really, that's coming from a very beautiful, helpful, compassionate space.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know many of us love imagery, and the cover of that book. Cover of the book is pretty powerful. Do you mind if I pin you real quick? I want to show the cover. Now remember I had a chance to see it when you were like on its final things. Can you describe, I mean it has to do what you just you talked about. Can you describe that? That's beautiful.
I think that the sun, I love symbolism and imagery, right? I think I'm in the right field for that.
Yeah. And you have a sand tray at your house.
Yes, yes, it's my little processing corner over there. Yeah, it's actually my little holding space. But I love the sun, how it represents like illuminating different ideas and thoughts. It's, on the brain, right? The brain of the brain area of the face. And I thought that the water and the reflection was really important internally, us continuing to reflect, search inward. There are two little boats, and they're actually meeting up. And the artist, I don't know if this was intentional or not, has this little boat by the mouth, which
Yeah.
I just kind of connect to speaking one's truth and hearing one's truth. Yeah, so I
And the
thought
other
that,
book inside, almost like the inner kind of version of that, like receiving and giving,
yeah,
receiving.
yeah,
Wow. Well, that's so good. And I think about, I mean, we're going to all like really get into it. Think about the water's constantly changing and we're changing and there's different weathers that goes with all that. And how do you navigate that? And it's just beautiful.
yeah.
That's amazing. Now, I haven't seen it with the gold stickers on it yet. What are those?
I received a couple awards, finalist for the Indie Book Awards and was a winner for the NYC Big Book Awards, which is so exciting.
Girl,
Yeah, so
it
exciting.
deserves that too. I'm not surprised, but I'm super happy. Wow.
Thank you.
Oof. That's so
Thank
good. So that when you're talking about authenticity and you're talking about like speaking our truth, living in our truth, it's really ours, not other people's versions of what we should be and shouldn't be.
Yes.
That'll spin us in like a whirlwind because there's always somebody that's gonna not be totally happy with who we are for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
You could be the ripest, juiciest peach in the entire world, and there's still going to be somebody who hates peaches. That's a quote that has stuck with me for a long while. It's true. Yeah. And again, to our core, as long as we align with ourselves, with our truth, we live in a way that aligns with us.
Yeah.
Really, truly, that I think is what we all search for as humans.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think too, like when that's misaligned, that feels, you could feel the dysregulation. You shift into flight or
Yeah.
fight. It's not matching what feels to be right. So that's at a big piece of like mental health, like where you're at. Are you living according to like your values and who you are?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
good. I'm having all
So
kinds
that
of aha moments here.
I just love the organic flow because I always believe that what is meant to come out will come out in our time together. And the people who are listening are meant to listen. And there's going to be something from our conversation that resonates. And it might be a little bit different for each person, but take the message in the way that it resonates for you and leave the rest and
Yeah.
see how that can help you either continue on in the way that you're doing things for your life and the way that you're finding balance, or if there's an area that you think would benefit from shifting, then that might be worth exploring further.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
I,
You're such a great therapist. I love the way, I mean, it gives you permission to kind of accept for what is, but then there's this invitation to make change if you're ready. It's like not a, you're doing this wrong, do this differently, but it's very much like if you need it, this is the time to shift into what feels, better or
yeah, and trusting yourself that you will know when it's the time for you. A
yeah.
lot of times we look outward, and I think reflecting inward really is what's needed. So with that, I will say something that is so important. The first tip is presence,
Mhm.
like true presence, enjoyment, mindfulness, like really being in the moment. So every single year, I choose a word of the year.
Yeah.
Last year, it was shift because I knew that I was becoming a mom and I wanted to shift in the way that I was going about balancing my work and my personal.
Mhm.
Uh, I have poured myself into work. I am definitely a workaholic, and it's not necessarily unhealthy for me. I've done a lot of exploration myself and in therapy to really, you know, make sure that the things I'm doing in a way that are healthy for my mind and body. And I realized I wasn't able or going to be able to continue to pour myself into my work in the way that I did because I really wanted to make sure that I made ample room for my little human that was coming into the world. So shift was the word of my year last year. This year presence is
Oh,
my word. And it's really hard. Like it's really hard. I see all these different memes and gifs and reels of all of these thoughts that are like bubbling over our heads as we're doing something. I have to do this, and I don't forget that, and add this to this, and what if this happens, and right on and on and on, and it takes us out of this space,
yeah.
right? We're in the future, we're in the past, we're back and forth, we're overwhelmed. And I started to recognize that my list started to pile up pretty quickly, and I felt really overwhelmed. Good stress is still stress, and wanting to make sure that I was still present for my child, but also, reintegrate more into some professional tasks and amazing offerings. It was really, really hard because every time I was present with my son, my brain is somewhere else. And I'm like, I do not want this moment to pass me by. Like so many people say, time flies. Oh, they're growing so fast. I mean, time and time and time and time again, I just hear it. Oh, time flies, doesn't it? I don't want to view life that way. I do know that in retrospect, the older we get, the more it feels like time passes by quickly because there's a lot more time behind us that we have reference to.
Oh,
Kids feel like time goes by so slowly because they don't have as much reference point,
oh,
right? It's a smaller,
wow.
yeah,
Oh, that's
right.
interesting. I never thought about that because it does as I'm getting older. It seems like it goes by fast. But I remember as a kid, it took forever to get to be 18. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
perspective. It all goes back to that.
it really does. That's why I wrote the book because it just kept coming back to my head. I'm like, this is
Oh,
saying something. Yeah, and I really genuinely feel like I, to the best of my abilities in each moment, am living in the moment. That's not to say I don't have my mind, fly forward and feel overwhelmed. And I'm talking about it a lot with my therapist, making sure that I'm being very intentional with what I'm taking on, and finding balance that works for me. And what that might mean is sometimes I have more things on my plate and it's just a busier time. But then, like today, I was very intentional to just be fully present with my son, listening to the sounds, the birds chirping outside. It's a beautiful day today, just enjoying some of the sunshine. I just held my son as he's just like playing with something on my lap, and I'm just breathing in the moments.
oh.
slow it down so it doesn't feel like it flies by. And I genuinely can say that I don't feel like this first year has flown by. Yes, in retrospect, it's like, well, I just had him yesterday and we've had a lot of life together so far. And I don't want that to pass too quickly. So I think that's really the first lesson for yourself is how can I find presence and really live in this moment mindfully and recognizing that there's going to be times and spaces where it's hard to do that. And that doesn't mean that you're failing. That doesn't mean you've taken steps back. That doesn't mean you're not going to be able to get on track. You're a human being. It's inevitable. This is how our minds work.
Yeah,
So,
kind of
yes,
blown away, and then you pull back if you notice. When I think about like being present, especially at a young age, really any age, it really embeds that I matter, I'm significant, I'm important, I have value. Those are some really cool cognitions to be kind of locked in there at an early age. You show up in the world in a different way.
absolutely. I love the way you say that. Absolutely. You do show up in the world in a different way.
Mm,
And it really is a mindset shift. As everything else, easier said than done, easier said than felt. And it really is that mindset shift,
yeah.
and the intentionality of what you're doing, pausing and really paying attention to what fits for your life and what doesn't, and shift into a direction that is in alignment with you.
Oh, that's so good. That's
Yeah.
so good. Okay, so number one is be present.
Yes. Number two is schedules, right? Like scheduling.
I got distracted. So scheduling. Okay, so not shooting from the hip and just let the day just kind of show up and like you've never seen the time clock before, the time. You
Scheduling dance parties,
yeah. I know we've danced together at a dance party. When I
Yeah.
said you do that, that must have took me back to a memory, like of us dancing. Oh my goodness, that's so interesting how that works. Totally, it's the end of the day when we're recording this. I have ADHD. I just got
But
distracted. Let's go back to number two.
no, this is beautiful because this goes back to point one, presence. You know what I mean? Like you're fully present in the moment here, and that's connecting to our connections
Yeah.
and the times that have been meaningful and enjoyable, right? That's presence. Like you're embodying what we're talking about. So,
Yeah, that was
just
so fun, and it just
mindset shift,
my
mindset shift.
if like it was okay to do that. Oh, gosh, that feels good. Oh my goodness, this is good stuff. Whether it's like applied to parenting or anything,
Yeah.
it's incredible. Okay, so schedules number
Yeah.
two. Thing.
Yeah. I mean, really compartmentalizing things in whatever way that works for you, right? Like some people do live by the agenda, by a scheduler. I'm one of them. I have things in two different calendars and I overlap. Like I have the same information in both calendars. It's kind of like my cross reference and one's my EHR system anyways. So I have
Yeah.
two different calendars and I have to-do lists. That's what works for me. Whatever works for your life, for your executive functioning, follow it. Try things out. This is not to say you have to schedule in that way. Schedule in a way that makes sense for you. I have to write stuff down. I know that my brain needs that. Not everyone does. So back to alignment with yourself, figure out this schedule, or in other words, a way to compartmentalize your tasks so that you can really make time and space for things if it's hard to do so. And I think with parenting specifically and having a professional career and the balance between both, it's really, really hard to schedule, especially as your kids start to get older. Mine is still very young, but now you're not only navigating your schedule, you're navigating your children's schedules and then your partner's schedule, or whatever, your family makeup is, whoever's schedules, are also in the mix.
Oh,
So
multiple children. Oh,
yeah. And so then it's like we have to go here, we have to do this, and then what are we eating for dinner? And then, it's constant, constant, constant. So it is a lot of planning. It is a lot of taking us out of the moment and making sure that we are having all of our ducks in a row and really being able to figure out, okay, if I'm so busy to do all of these things in these different times, let me make sure that I'm dedicating 10 minutes of my day to full presence with my child, right? Whether that's Like I just laid on the floor today. I was laying on the floor as my son's name's Lennox, as Lennox was like playing on the ground, and I'm just like sipping my coffee, presence, right? Like I'm just here fully in this moment, and I was really able to take things out of my brain. And that really is only because there's not as much on my to-do list right now. So let me just be real about that. Ask me a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I would have been in a different mental space because that's just the way that my balance was. Now
Okay.
I'm making sure to integrate more relaxation. But
And you're still working. I mean, you have like few locations, right? Like
yeah,
you have some stuff going on. This isn't just like a light, like I'm just doing a couple things. Like you have some stuff going on that schedules probably are essential.
yeah. I've stepped into some more leadership positions, and I'm running 3 different locations for my practice. We're constantly hiring. I have my own caseload. I supervise, I mentor, I provide consultation, right? It's a lot. And that's why scheduling is imperative for me. Fridays, really, oftentimes I try to make more of my day to be like a stay-at-home mom, right? Like I will do different things throughout the day. I'll work sometimes maybe a little bit as Lennox is playing. It depends. Like I'm very aware. I want to make sure if he looks at me, I'm not just on my screen. I'm able to navigate my peripheral when he's playing. So just find what works for you. And
Mm.
it's good to lean on people to see what they're doing and how it works for them and gives you different ideas. And it might not align with you, and that is okay. That does not mean you're doing it wrong. That's something that I've struggled with as a mom so far is no matter how much that I know and how comfortable I feel entering into parenthood, I still question, oh my gosh, should I have done this way? Should I do this? This is saying that. Oh no, like I asked the pediatrician this thing and then they said to do this and then it's not really working. And do I trust my child or do I listen to the pediatrician? Like, right. It's like constantly wondering, am I doing the right thing? Should I do things differently? And I just keep coming back to it's hard. Okay, it's hard. I keep coming back to Lennox will tell me what he needs, right? Us as child mental health professionals, we know that children have within them what they need, right? We, of course, want to provide a supportive space, right? A holding space for our children, whether that's our children or the children that we serve and support in any way. And they know internally what they need. And so it's just being able to be present with them and listen to that, meet them where they are and trust them, right? This is how our inner trust is formed. I want Lennox to trust himself when there are certain things that he wants or needs, and I'm going to be responsive to that versus me saying, oh, but I read this one blog and they said that I needed to make sure that I stood on one foot, blinked 3 times, swirled around, and then changed his diaper upside down because that's the way to do it. It's like,
There's so many more variables to human needs
oh,
than what
yeah,
somebody put that was the situation for one or even 100,000 kids. It's not your child in the moment.
yeah,
I remember, I remember thinking all the shoulds like, oh, pacifiers are bad, pacifiers are okay. Nursing, there's like the bottle versus nursing, and there's all of these kind of like things that if you look at how everybody else is doing it, you walk away kind of feeling inadequate if you're holding yourself to, I need to do what everybody else thinks is all right.
yep.
I like that. And I love the idea of scheduling for practicality. Do you use like you have your EHR, which is for your practice, but do you use like Google Calendar or is it Google Calendar so it
Yep.
gives you like alerts and stuff?
Yeah, I just check frequently, so I don't have notifications pop ups, but I do also set reminders. Those
Okay.
notifications pop ups. So yeah, I have my EHR calendar that I have all my sessions in, and then I'll put like blocks of time when I have other things. It also just alerts me when I'm looking throughout the week, like, oh, okay, I have this thing coming up on Saturday, like reminder to self. I just kind of keep receiving the visual cues of what's coming up, not in a way to overwhelm myself, just as, okay, that's the next thing on the horizon. For some people, it overwhelms them to see that. So do what aligns with you. Um,
Take the
and then I have my Google Calendar. So I have everything in my Google Calendar. I use the Notes app in my phone. And so I have like my work to do. That's its own note. I have my general to do. I have my shopping list. I have notes for Pocket, which are beautiful messages that people have sent me, or just really lovely things that people have shared. And I have a whole list of messages from people that I call notes for Pocket. I have a brain spirals list for my husband. I have all kinds of things. I
Notes
have all
for
kinds of things.
Pocket. That seems like notes for pocket. I mean, as stressful moments hit, that could be something that could kind of bring you back, pull you back to like a feel good something, like a sparkle, like shift your state.
Yeah. Sparkle.
You,
Yes.
you like
Yeah. And then
squirrel?
I love it. I love it. I saw something today that someone said that they define themselves as a human sparkler. And I was like, oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Oh,
So it's
like felt that. It like in my arms. It's interesting. You think about sparkles are like you can't not be aware that it's happening. It
we're
is
here.
a little pizzazz into the day. Okay, so you use Google Calendar, your EHR, your notes,
And
like
then
you don't have to remember things that are happening.
no, and then I set reminders. So if I actually need to be reminded of something, I'll set a reminder. I set a reminder to give Lennox a bath every other day. It
Oh,
just pops up every other day. So like, I mean, I will write things down on my to-do list so that it's written down. That's just it's super helpful for me. So especially when I get really busy, I might write something like take a shower down on my list. It's not that I'm going to necessarily forget, although I know that that sometimes happens for people and that's so normal.
yeah.
I just want to make sure that I include that in my consideration of what time things are
Oh,
going to take for me in a certain day. Or if I'm looking ahead at the evening, okay, I have this much time, but I also want to like get a little bit of laundry done. I want to make sure that I give myself time to take a bath perhaps or a shower. How am I going to divide my time? So
oh,
I really will break down the components of my schedule further.
okay, okay. Oh, that's good practical information. So presence and scheduling.
Yes. And then the third one, which we've actually really touched base on throughout it for our little human sparkler
Yeah.
journey, self-compassion,
Hmm.
right? So the comparison, the trust in ourselves, and having a growth mindset, really. Like recognizing that we're constantly growing and learning, trusting ourselves in the process, and being kind to ourselves, even if other people aren't. And oftentimes, let's be real, if people aren't being kind to others, oftentimes there's a pain point there because even if there's somebody else who isn't behaving in a manner that is ideal, right? We can choose how we interact
Mhm.
in that instance, right? And so I'll leave it at that, but just kindness and trust and love to yourself, that really is essential.
To me, that seems like kind of like they get the kids or the child gets a different version of you, a version of you that not only can like give love to them, but they can feel the love for yourself. And you can hear it in your tone of voice, the way that you move and just everything. It changes the way you sleep and digest food and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. I know Christian Neff, is it Neff or Nuff? She does a lot of that shame and self-compassion work. It's just good stuff.
Yeah.
And
I
shut
often refer to some of her exercises. One of really great exercise in therapy is to take three different perspectives. And this is from Dr. Kristen Neff.
you.
Yeah, it's perspectives. Are you surprised that I'm bringing this up?
The
You
word
take,
seems to like really like, I mean, that's a big
oh, yeah.
life. What a great
It
title.
showed up. It showed up in everything. I mean, I started to just have my own list of thoughts. It was just bullet points because perspective showed up in everything. It just was everywhere.
Title
Um,
itself, really, it seems like it just came to be. Like if it wasn't
yes.
to not be the title. It's
Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
it's back to like authenticity and things transpiring organically. That was the book for me, which was shocking. That's not something that I was, it was a goal of mine. It just happened.
I
Yeah.
feel
So
like
trust
half
yourself.
of it. Read like half of it on a plane ride. I can't remember where I was. I think I was coming back from New York going to Florida. It was like a long, like I was in the airport. I couldn't like turn the pages quick enough. It's such a, I mean, it explains a lot in life in a way that takes the it cuts through that you're doing something wrong and it helps you to kind of realize what's going on, which ironically helps things to shift way better than you're doing this wrong, you need to change.
Yes. Yes. Insight and awareness is key. And when we're able to implement change from a loving stance within ourselves, it is a more natural and comfortable process. If there's something that's going to hit on our ego and ultimately result in us feeling like crap about ourselves, most times our ego then becomes more defensive and we push it away because it's too painful. Yeah. So Kristen Neff's activity that is so helpful in therapy and also just great for yourself is taking the three perspectives. So that of the criticizer, so the parts of yourself that are giving the messages that are hurtful, that are, harsh, that are damaging perhaps. Then you take the role of the criticized, so the pain points, being able to reflect on that, or how it impacts you. It might not be painful, how it impacts you when you hear the things that the criticizer part of yourself
So,
expresses. And then you take the stance of the self-compassionate observer. So
mm,
it's saying, I understand that the criticizer has some important points. Maybe the message could be conveyed in a different way, a little bit more self-compassion-y, but there are messages there. It's important to be heard. So let us validate some of the criticizer messages, and then let's hear what the criticizee, the criticized
yeah.
components of yourself are feeling, and then how can we find balance and harmony between them, considering both perspectives in a way that is kind and compassionate towards yourself.
Ooh.
I love that message. So yeah, that is Dr. Kristen Neff. I love that you brought her up because she really does focus a lot on shame and compassion and has some really great workbooks too. So just in case anyone's interested.
I'll link below this video to that too. So like just to kind of look at that like from a example standpoint, I'm a bad mom because I don't take my kid to the library as much as my neighbor does. So the criticize would be I'm a bad mom. No,
Mhm.
like my neighbor does. Crit would it go deeper than that? Like what would the actual activity that
Yeah, I mean,
that
yeah. So it's kind of like the empty chair technique where which I didn't actually specify that. You can have people sit in different seats, or you can physically get up and move to a different seat. So you sit and you speak as if you are the criticizer perspective.
Mhm.
Like, so let's say for this example, like you should be ashamed of yourself. People are judging you, right? Like really the hurtful things, right?
Yeah.
The things that you think, like they think you're a bad mom. You are a bad mom. They're right. Right. And when I say you, I mean, like, I'm saying this to myself, right? Like, so like maybe even change it to saying I, right? Like I'm a bad mom. I don't do enough with my kids, all the negative messages. Then
Yeah.
the criticizee or the criticized components of yourself is,
Up and go to another chair.
yeah, then you can move. So you can actually really embody that space, right? And talking about presence, being present in that space. What do you really, really feel when you hear those messages internally or externally?
Even just you modeling them, I felt the like heaviness, like the urge to curl into myself.
I saw. Yeah.
So powerful.
Mhm.
Wow, I bet that's pretty profound with like people in therapy as well. To be
Yeah.
able to just know how much that affects their system, which, like you said, takes like it affects your capacity to be present with your kid. And then, definitely would affect your energy level to be able to do stuff because you feel so crappy.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually something that I just thought of that I think is great to mention to all who are listening, this can absolutely be implemented in play therapy too. So I know we're talking about parenting right now, and I know that this is for the helper, and that's important. And I just want to give a quick little sidestep that you can always implement this in creative ways, right? You can have the child act out the different roles, different perspectives, assist the child in perspective taking. So I just want to say this can be adapted to that too, since I know that's what a lot of you are here for as well. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, taking this great
Yeah.
concept, be able to use it as needed. Oh,
Yeah.
active therapy, that has a nice ring to it.
Ooh, I like like it. I mean, I think that's ultimately what therapy is. Yeah, but I think being able to
Yeah.
phrase it that way of
I
it
love,
really is.
and the idea of taking on these different kind of, whether it's parts or roles or whatever that looks like, that's incredibly powerful. So
Yeah,
there's presence, scheduling, and self-compassion.
yeah,
That
yeah.
could
And
be the trajectory of parenting.
and with the self-compassion, like with the exercise, for example, then you can say something such as, I wish that I was able to go more, was able to go to the library more with my child. I really would like to read more with them. And I recognize that where we are in our time and space right now, it's not feasible. So being able to acknowledge both. And then if you want to make a plan, okay, well, when I have, then this is what I do myself. You don't have to make a plan. You can just let the words hit the air, and that's healing, right?
Yeah.
But you can then say, okay, well, I want to make sure that I'm implementing this in my life. So I know that I'm going to reach all of my side projects by the end of April, which is what happened. A lot of my side projects had a deadline by the end of the month. And I am really reveling in presence. And for that example, I would then go to the library and I would get some books, and I would make sure to be more present in reading if that is what I decided to do.
Oh, so it gives enough relief from the pain to be able to free up some problem solving there, some ideas.
Yeah, because when we self-sabotage, we stay stuck in that. It's paralyzing.
Paralyzing to where like you feel so bad about yourself that you're in survival mode. And then your child, I mean, they can feel that energy too.
Yes.
Oh, oh,
And then
that's,
oftentimes kids will absorb that energy and think it's a reflection of them. So this is my stuff, right? This is 100% owned and operated by me. And I am introspective and am aware of that. And I'm intentional with trying to be mindful of where my energy is going and how my child, how Lennox is picking up on that. Because, yeah, absolutely. Children are not going to say, oh, yes, I know my mother had a really tough day today. She had a lot on her to-do list. Like,
yeah.
he's almost 11 months old. He is not thinking about that. Like, I don't know what he's thinking about fully. I can't speak for him. And I can almost guarantee he's not thinking about that, right? He's going to think, oh no, mom is mad. What's going on? Right. And then oftentimes kids are very egocentric. Humans are egocentric. Let's be real. Developmentally speaking, though, children are egocentric. The world revolves around them. That's their perspective.
Yeah.
So then if their perspective is, well, I'm the center of the world, I'm the center of my world, then there's something that's going on that's bad. Well, that must be a reflection of me when it's not. And
Oh,
so I think this is the core of a lot of pain for a lot of earlier pain for children.
oh,
Yeah.
that's where they get their sense of self. And if it's before like the pre-verbal or cognitive memory, it's like stuck there. It's like you can access it, but it's definitely not as accessible as being able to say it aloud.
Yeah.
Wow, so good.
I have one more thing. I have one
Yes.
more thing because I'm mindful of how some people might listen to that now and say, oh no,
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing. I'm ruining my child. Let's go back to self-compassion. Okay. Okay. This catastrophizing. Let's be a little bit more gentle with ourselves with that. But for those of you who might feel like, oh, but I'm responding in this way with my child, and I just did this thing, and then I got upset, and then my child got upset, and then great, and now this is the core of my child's being, and I've ruined them, right? Like this is where we keep going. And so I know that some people might feel that way. Perspective, recognizing that it's all about the repair,
Yeah.
right? It's not necessarily about any potential rupture, it's about the repair. You are a human being modeling a human experience. Perfection is an unrealistic
Yeah.
concept. Right? So
Nope.
just yeah, it's really just becoming more aware, more aligned, more present, and being able to work through human experiences in an authentic, vulnerable, real way.
Yeah. So circling back with a repair attempt to make it right, that feels safe and heals the relationship. Well, it's so good. So, yeah, I could see, I mean, like my kids are in their 20s now. So even thinking back, like there were times where I wasn't present. I still struggle with scheduling. And the self-compassion is an ongoing effort. So I think that just kind of owning like, when Maya Angelou says do better, no, do better when you know better. Is that the phrase or what she
I mean,
says? When you know better, you do better. Yeah. To be able to,
and we tend to really stick to the negatives in our mind, right? Like what is, I don't know if the saying is like you need 10 that boys or 9 that boys for one shame on you. I think I don't know if that's the saying, something along those lines. But like ultimately when we make a mistake, we latch on to that mistake and we could do all these amazing things also, but they kind of get thrown out the window. So I'm even thinking the moments that there might have been some rupture, that there were probably a lot of reparative experiences that you didn't even realize.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So make sure you look at the positives as well. I know Gottman has some research, the 5 to 1 relational, like as long as you have 5 positives to every negative. And I know there's variables and room for like what makes a negative or a positive and how big or whatever, but way more good stuff than tough stuff. So we can have we have some margin of error. Thank
yeah,
goodness.
way to be human. That's what I would say.
All right, so we're almost out of time, but I want to make sure people know where to go to learn more from you. I'll have links below the video, but if you could just say it aloud for those that may just be listening, that'd be great.
Yeah. Um, I have a little link that can get you access to me in a lot of areas, right? Sprinkle me everywhere. My beacons page. Some people are a little bit more familiar with Linktree. It's the same concept. So it's beacons.ai/Doc Vader. And then you can contact me through my socials that way. You can see all the things that I am doing and offering. And yeah, I would love to connect.
You have so many books. I mean, you wrote your book, but you have so many book chapters too. Wrote a lot with Dr. Jessica Stone, and I know you just had Trauma Impacts come out, and Leah wrote a chapter in that. So there's so much to offer in YouTube. We'll put it all below. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. You are amazing.
You are amazing, truly. And everyone that's listening is amazing too. Don't forget that.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. I have the feel goods right now. Thank you. Catch you later. Bye bye.
Bye.